The evening air was heavy with noise and lights. Tall glass buildings shone against the dark sky, and the sound of cars filled the streets. Among all the busy people walking fast with their phones in hand, one man stood out. His name was Rashid, a well-known CEO who had built his company with discipline, hard work, and strict decisions. People respected him, but they also feared him, because he rarely smiled and never wasted his time. That night, Rashid stepped out of a grand hotel where a meeting with investors had just finished. His black car waited near the gate, and his driver stood ready. Rashid's face looked calm, but inside his heart carried a quiet storm. For 2 years, his wife Mina had been unable to walk. An accident had taken away her ability to stand, and though the best doctors had tried, none had given hope. Rashid could buy anything in the world, yet he could not buy back his wife's steps. He adjusted his coat and began to walk toward his car when a soft voice stopped him. "Sir! Sir, I can make your wife walk again." The words came from the side of the street, almost lost in the city noise. Rashid froze, his foot still in the air. He turned slowly and saw a boy, no older than 15, sitting on the cold pavement. The boy's clothes were torn, his hair messy, and his face thin. A small tin cup sat near him with only a few coins inside. But the boy was not begging. His eyes were fixed on Rashid with a strange kind of certainty. For a moment, Rashid thought he had misheard. Perhaps his tired mind was playing tricks. He frowned and walked closer. "What did you say?" Rashid asked, his voice firm but low. The boy did not look away. "Your wife, she cannot walk. But I can help her. I can make her walk again." Rashid's chest tightened. He stared at the boy, unsure whether to be angry or simply laugh. How could this homeless child know about Mina? And how dare he speak of her condition like this? Rashid's driver looked shocked too, waiting silently by the car. "Who told you about my wife?" Rashid demanded. "No one," the boy replied gently. "I can see it in your face, in the way you walk. You carry sadness with you. My father taught me to read people, to feel what they hide. He was a healer. Before he passed away, he showed me how to ease pain, how to bring back strength." The boy's voice was soft, but each word was steady. He did not shake, he did not beg, and he did not lower his gaze. There was something unusual about him, something that did not fit the picture of a poor child sitting on a street corner. Rashid wanted to ignore him and step into his car. He wanted to dismiss the boy as just another desperate child trying to survive with stories. But something inside his heart whispered to pause. For 2 years, he had heard nothing but closed doors from doctors. He had watched Mina hide her tears, pretending to be strong while she sat in her chair. Every night, he had prayed for even a small sign of hope. And now, a strange voice from the street had dared to say the impossible. "What is your name?" Rashid asked finally. "My name is Amir," the boy answered. Rashid studied him for a long moment. Amir's hands were rough, his feet bare, but his eyes shone with honesty. "You expect me to believe you?" Rashid said, his tone sharp. "That a boy with no shoes, no home, no food, can do what the best doctors in the world could not?" Amir lowered his head for a second, then lifted it again with the same calm. "I do not expect you to believe me, sir. But I ask you to give me one chance. If I fail, you can send me away. But if I succeed, your wife will walk again. Isn't that worth one chance?" Rashid felt his throat tighten. The city noise around them seemed to fade. His driver shifted uneasily, waiting for orders. Rashid's mind argued with itself. Logic said the boy was lying, but his heart whispered otherwise. Finally, Rashid took a deep breath. "You are either a fool or a miracle, Amir. But I will not decide here on the street. Come with me." Amir's eyes widened, but he nodded. Slowly, He stood up, picking up his small tin cup with the few coins. He followed Rashid to the car. The driver looked surprised but opened the door anyway. As the car began to move through the glowing city roads, Rashid leaned back in silence. Across from him, Amir sat quietly, his small hands resting on his knees. Neither spoke for a while, but the air between them carried a strange weight. Rashid closed his eyes and thought of Mina. Could it be possible that hope had come to him in the shape of a homeless boy? Or was he only opening his door to disappointment once again? The night grew darker, and the city lights blurred against the car windows. But inside Rashid's heart, for the first time in a long while, a tiny spark of hope began to flicker. The car rolled through the shining streets until it entered a quieter part of the city where Rashid lived. His house stood tall behind strong gates, surrounded by gardens that few people were allowed to enter. As the driver stopped the car, Rashid glanced at Amir, the boy sitting across from him. Amir's clothes were still dusty, and his small tin cup with a few coins rested in his lap. Yet his eyes carried no fear. Most children in his place would look nervous while sitting in such a luxury car, but Amir looked calm, as if he belonged there. Rashid stepped out, and the boy followed quietly. The guards by the gate frowned when they saw Amir, but Rashid raised his hand, and no one dared to question. The boy walked inside the mansion for the first time in his life. The great hall glowed with warm lights. Expensive paintings hung on the walls, and the marble floor shone like water. But Amir's eyes did not widen at the sight. He walked slowly, as if such beauty meant little to him. "Wait here," Rashid said, leading him toward the sitting room. He called for tea, then sat across from Amir. The boy placed his tin cup beside him and folded his hands. Silence filled the room for a moment until Rashid spoke. "Amir," Rashid began, his voice steady, "do you know how many doctors I have taken my wife to? The best in the country. Some even came from abroad. All of them tried, but they failed. Now tell me, how can you, a boy without food or home, claim you can do what they could not?" Amir did not lower his eyes. "Sir," he said gently, "I know I am young. I know I have nothing. But I carry knowledge my father gave me. He was a healer in our village. People came to him when others lost hope. He treated many who could not walk, who could not move their hands. He showed me the secrets of the body, the points where life flows. Before he passed away, he told me, 'Amir, use this gift not for money but to give hope.' That is why I spoke to you tonight." Rashid leaned back, folding his arms. His face was unreadable, but his heart stirred. The boy's words reminded him of Mina's quiet tears, the pain she tried to hide. Could it be possible? "You speak with confidence," Rashid said. "But confidence is not enough. If you are wrong, you will play with my wife's heart. I cannot allow that." "I understand, sir," Amir replied softly. "If you wish, you can send me away now. But if you give me one chance, I promise you I will try with all I have learned. Even if it takes time, even if it takes patience, I will not stop until she feels change." Rashid watched him carefully. The boy was thin, clearly hungry, yet there was no greed in his tone. He had not asked for money, not even food. He only asked for a chance. That truth touched something deep inside Rashid. "Very well," Rashid said at last. "You will meet her. But if I see even the smallest trick, you will leave at once. Do you understand?" "Yes, sir," Amir answered, bowing his head. Just then, a soft voice came from the hallway. "Rashid, who is this?" It was Mina. She sat in her wheelchair, dressed in a light shawl. Her face was gentle, though pale from years of weakness. She looked at Amir with surprise but not fear. Rashid stood quickly and went to her side. "Mina," he said quietly, "this is Amir. He says he can help you." Mina's eyebrows lifted slightly, but instead of doubt, a small smile touched her lips. Help me? You mean help me walk? She turned her gaze to Amir, who stood silently with respect. Yes, madam, Amir said softly. If you will allow me. Mina studied him for a long moment. Most people in her place would laugh at such words, but she did not. Perhaps she had grown tired of hopeless doctors. Perhaps she simply saw honesty in Amir's young face. Whatever the reason, her smile grew warmer. Then let him try, Rashid, Mina said. Rashid looked at her with disbelief. You trust him so easily. I have nothing to lose, Mina whispered. And maybe we have something to gain. Her words silenced Rashid. He could not argue with the truth in them. Finally, he nodded. Amir walked closer and gently knelt beside Mina's chair. He touched her hand lightly, not in disrespect but in comfort. Madam, he said softly, your journey will not be easy. It may take time. But I believe we can bring back strength to your legs. Will you walk with me on this journey? Tears filled Mina's eyes. It had been years since anyone had spoken to her with such simple hope. She placed her hand on Amir's and nodded. Yes, Amir. I will try. Rashid watched the scene with a heavy heart. Something inside him shifted: anger, fear, and doubt mixed with the faint light of hope. He still did not fully believe, but he could not ignore the feeling growing inside. That night, the mansion, usually filled with silence, carried a new kind of air. The air of possibility. Rashid did not know if it was foolishness or faith, but he knew one thing: the boy's strange confidence had touched them both. For the first time in years, the shadow of despair lifted slightly, and a new chapter began. The next morning, sunlight poured into the large house. Birds sang in the garden, but inside, silence rested heavy in the rooms. Mina sat by the window in her wheelchair, staring at the flowers outside. Rashid stood near the door, deep in thought. He still wondered if bringing Amir home was a mistake. Amir entered the room quietly, carrying a small bag that Rashid's driver had helped him collect from the street corner. Inside the bag were only a few old cloth pieces, a small notebook, and dried herbs wrapped in paper. Nothing more. Rashid noticed and shook his head. How could such simple things hold the power to heal what doctors could not? But Mina turned and smiled at Amir. Good morning, she said warmly. Good morning, madam, Amir replied, bowing his head slightly. Did you sleep well? A little better than usual, Mina said, her eyes soft. Perhaps it is because hope came into this house last night. Her words made Rashid sigh. Mina, do not raise your hopes too high. We cannot put our trust in, but she stopped him gently. Rashid, I am already living in this chair. If nothing changes, I will still be here. But if something does change, even a little, then is it not worth trying? Rashid could not answer. Her calm voice silenced him. He stepped aside and allowed Amir to walk closer. Amir knelt beside Mina's chair and touched her leg lightly, not with force but with respect. Madam, he said, I must first learn how much feeling remains. Do you still sense touch, even a little? Mina closed her eyes as Amir pressed his fingers along her foot and calf. At first, she felt nothing. But when he touched a certain point near her ankle, a faint shiver ran through her. She gasped. Yes, there, I felt something. Very faint, but real. Amir smiled softly. That is good. It means the path is not fully broken. With time and care, we may wake it again. Rashid's eyes widened. For 2 years, not a single doctor had spoken words like these. They had spoken of limits, of permanent damage, of learning to live in the chair. But Amir spoke of waking what was asleep, not of something lost forever. Amir stood. I will need warm water, clean cloth, and these herbs boiled gently. May I prepare them? Rashid, though still doubtful, called for the servants. Soon a small table was set with hot water and bowls. Amir worked carefully, mixing crushed herbs with water to make a paste. The smell was strange but not unpleasant. He applied the paste gently to Mina's legs, wrapping them with cloth. It may sting a little, Amir said, but that is good. It means the blood begins to move again. Mina winced slightly but nodded. I can bear it, she said. Rashid watched every step with sharp eyes. He expected to find some sign of trickery, some foolish game. But Amir worked with steady hands, almost like an adult healer. His young face carried a seriousness beyond his age. After the treatment, Amir sat quietly on the floor near Mina. He closed his eyes and pressed his fingers gently at different points on her legs. His touch was firm yet careful. Rashid found himself leaning forward, surprised at the boy's focus. Minutes passed. Finally, Mina let out a small cry. I feel warmth. Her words made Rashid stand quickly. What did you say? My legs, Mina whispered, tears filling her eyes. They feel warm. I haven't felt that in so long. Rashid's chest tightened. He looked at Amir, who simply nodded. It is only the beginning, the boy said. But it is a sign. That evening, the house felt different. Rashid noticed Mina's smile return, a smile he had not seen in months. Even the servants whispered with surprise about the boy who came from the street yet brought new air into the home. At dinner, Rashid asked Amir to sit with them. At first, the boy refused, saying he was not worthy to sit at the same table. But Mina insisted, and finally, Amir joined. He ate quietly, with manners that surprised Rashid. He did not grab or eat fast, though it was clear he had known hunger for long. Where is your family? Mina asked gently. Amir lowered his head. My father passed away last year. My mother before that. Since then, I have lived where I could. Sometimes I sell small things, sometimes I do small work. But mostly, I just try to survive. Mina's eyes softened with sadness. She reached out and touched his hand. You are not alone anymore, she whispered. Rashid looked at her, then at Amir. He felt something shift inside him again. He was not ready to trust fully, but he could not deny what he had seen today. The boy had brought warmth not only to Mina's legs but to the entire house. That night, as Rashid lay in bed, he stared at the ceiling. Mina slept peacefully beside him, her face calm in the dim light. He remembered her words, if nothing changes, I will still be here. But if something does change, is it not worth trying? And for the first time in years, Rashid allowed himself to whisper a prayer of hope. Perhaps this boy, Amir, was more than just a wanderer on the street. Perhaps he had come into their lives for a reason. The broken home that had been filled with silence now held something new. It was fragile, like a small flame, but it was there. It was hope. Days began to pass with a new rhythm inside Rashid's house. Each morning, Amir rose early, before even the servants stirred. He would boil herbs in the kitchen, preparing mixtures with careful hands. Then he would enter Mina's room, carrying the warmth of hope with him. Mina welcomed him every day with a gentle smile. She had grown used to the quiet routine of her chair, but now there was something different in her mornings, something to look forward to. Rashid, though still uncertain, stayed close during each session. He watched every move Amir made, searching for proof that this boy was not only speaking dreams. Amir worked patiently. He pressed points on Mina's legs, massaged them with oil and herbs, and spoke softly as he did so. He told her, the body is like a river, madam. Sometimes the water stops flowing. But if we clear the path, slowly, it begins to move again. Mina listened carefully. His words were simple, yet they carried truth that gave her strength. At times, the pressure of his hands caused her discomfort, but Amir encouraged her. "Pain is not the enemy," he said. "It is the sign that life is waking inside." For the first week, nothing seemed to change. Rashid grew impatient. One evening, when Amir had left the room, Rashid turned to Mina. "This is useless," Rashid said, his tone sharp. "We are letting a child play with our hearts. We cannot waste more time." Mina held his hand gently. "Rashid," she whispered, "do you not see? For the first time in years, I feel something inside my legs. It is faint, yes, but it is real. Do not take this hope away from me." Her eyes were full of quiet strength. Rashid had no answer. He lowered his gaze, troubled by his own doubt. Then, on the 10th morning, something happened. As Amir pressed on a point near her knee, Mina gasped. "What is it, madam?" Amir asked quickly. I I felt a sharp tingle," Mina whispered, her voice trembling. "Like a spark, moving down to my foot." Amir's face lit with joy. "That is the river moving again. The path is waking." Rashid's eyes widened. He stepped forward. "Mina, are you certain?" "Yes, Rashid," she said, her voice breaking. "I felt it. After so long, I felt it." Tears filled Rashid's eyes, though he quickly turned away so no one could see. In that moment, his heavy heart lifted slightly. He could not deny what had just happened. From that day onward, the changes became clearer. Mina began to feel warmth in her feet each time Amir worked on her legs. Sometimes it was only for a few seconds, but it was enough to keep her hope alive. She began to dream of standing again, even if it was only for one moment. The servants of the house noticed too. They whispered among themselves about the street boy who had brought life back to their madam's eyes. Some doubted, but many believed they were seeing something close to a miracle. One evening, Rashid returned late from work. He found Mina sitting by the piano in the hall. She could not play as she once did, but she rested her fingers on the keys. Amir sat beside her, listening quietly. Mina was humming softly, her face glowing with peace. When Rashid entered, she turned to him with bright eyes. "Rashid," she said, "today I moved my toes." He stopped in his tracks, staring at her in shock. "What did you say?" "I moved them," she said, almost laughing through her tears. "It was small, so small. But I saw it, and Amir saw it too." Rashid's heart pounded. He walked quickly to her side and knelt down. "Show me," he whispered. Mina lifted her gown slightly and tried again. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, one of her toes shifted. It was a tiny movement, but it was real. Rashid covered his mouth with his hand, unable to speak. His eyes filled with tears he could no longer hide. He looked at Amir, who sat silently, his young face calm yet filled with quiet pride. "You see, sir," Amir said softly, "the river is moving." That night, Rashid sat long after Mina had fallen asleep. He thought about the boy who had come from the street, the boy he almost ignored. If he had walked past that night, he would never have known this moment. The man who once believed only in money and power now sat with trembling hands, whispering a prayer of thanks. For the first time in years, he dared to imagine a future where his wife could stand beside him again. In the following days, Amir continued with even greater effort. Mina worked hard too, though the exercises were painful at times. But she never complained. Instead, she smiled more, laughed more, and her eyes carried light again. Rashid, watching them, began to change as well. The cold walls around his heart started to soften. He no longer saw Amir as a beggar but as a gift sent into their lives at the right time. And as spring flowers began to bloom in the garden outside, hope bloomed inside the house as well. It was still fragile, still uncertain, but it was alive. The first signs of change had come, and they carried with them the promise of something greater. The news of Mina's small progress spread quietly inside the house. The servants spoke in whispers about her moving toes, and some even called it a miracle. But outside the mansion, the world knew nothing. Rashid had not told his business partners or friends. He feared their judgment, and perhaps, he also feared hope itself. Yet change could not stay hidden for long. One afternoon, during a business lunch, Rashid's closest associate, Farhan, noticed his distracted mind. Rashid was usually sharp, his thoughts always on numbers and deals, but now he looked softer, almost absent. "What is it, Rashid?" Farhan asked. "You are not yourself these days." Rashid hesitated, then said quietly, "Mina, she felt something in her legs. A boy has been helping her." Farhan raised an eyebrow. "A boy?" "Yes," Rashid said. "A homeless boy I met on the street." Farhan blinked, then laughed sharply. "You cannot be serious. You, the man of reason, the man of discipline, trusting a street child? Rashid, do not let your grief make you foolish." Rashid's jaw tightened. "It is not foolishness. I saw it with my own eyes." Mina moved her toes. But Farhan shook his head. "Perhaps it was only her imagination. Or maybe the boy tricks you. People like him know how to play with emotions for money. You must be careful." The words stung Rashid. He left the lunch unsettled, his mind filled with doubt once again. That evening, when he returned home, he watched Amir working with Mina. The boy's young hands pressed firmly on her legs, his eyes full of focus. Mina's face glowed with determination. Yet Farhan's words echoed in Rashid's mind. Was he being blind? Was he letting a child fool them because he longed for hope? Later that night, Rashid paced in his study. Amir entered quietly, carrying empty bowls from the herbs. "Sir," he said, "Madam is resting now." Rashid looked at him sharply. "Tell me the truth, Amir. Are you giving us false hope? Are you making her believe in something that will never happen?" Amir did not flinch. He placed the bowls down and faced Rashid with calm eyes. "Sir, I cannot promise the future. I am not God. But I can promise you this: I will not stop until I have done everything I know. What you saw was real. Your wife's body is waking, little by little. But it will take time, and it will test your patience." Rashid stared at him for a long moment. Amir's words carried no fear, no greed, only honesty. Still, Rashid's heart was heavy. The next day, more doubts came. Two of Rashid's partners visited the house to discuss work. They saw Amir in the hallway, carrying herbs. One of them frowned and whispered to Rashid, "Why is a beggar child walking inside your home?" "He is helping Mina," Rashid replied simply. The men exchanged looks, then laughed quietly. "Rashid, you are letting your sorrow cloud your mind. How can a street boy heal what great doctors cannot? Do not embarrass yourself." Their words pressed on him like stones. That evening, Rashid almost told Amir to leave. But when he entered Mina's room, his decision broke apart. She sat with her hands folded, her eyes bright. "Rashid," she said softly, "today I felt my ankle move. It was faint, but Amir saw it too." Her joy filled the room like sunlight. Rashid could not take that from her. He looked at Amir, who stood silently in the corner, and something inside him shifted again. Later that night, Rashid sat beside Mina. "Mina, what if all this is only temporary? What if he cannot take you further?" Mina took his hand. "Rashid, even if I never walk again, Amir has given me something no one else could hope. For 2 years I sat here in silence, waiting for nothing. Now, each day, I feel change. I feel alive again. Is that not worth believing in? Her words struck his heart deeply. He realized he was afraid not of Amir failing, but of losing hope once more. Yet Mina had the courage to embrace it. Why could he not? From that night, Rashid decided to stand with Amir, no matter what others thought. He stopped listening to whispers of doubt and focused on the light growing in his home. The days that followed tested his patience. Some mornings Mina felt nothing, and Rashid's fear returned. But Amir never wavered. The river does not flow in one day, he reminded them. It takes time to clear the stones. Then, one morning, as sunlight poured through the curtains, Mina lifted her foot slightly from the floor. It was not a step, not even close, but it was more than before. Rashid saw it, and his heart shook with awe. He turned to Amir, his eyes wet. "You were right," he whispered. Amir bowed his head. "Not me, sir. It is her strength. I only guided the way." At that moment, Rashid understood. Faith was not about certainty, it was about believing even when others called you foolish. And he chose to believe. The days stretched into weeks, and the house slowly filled with a rhythm no one had known before. Each morning, Mina worked with Amir faithfully. She endured the pain, the pressure of his hands, and the strange smell of herbs that filled her room. Rashid often sat nearby, his heart torn between fear and hope. At first, the changes were small, only tingles and warmth. But then, Mina began to move her toes more clearly. Soon after, she could lift her foot slightly from the ground. Each tiny progress filled the house with joy. One evening, as the sun set behind the tall walls of the garden, Rashid walked into Mina's room. She was sitting upright, her face glowing. Amir knelt beside her, guiding her through exercises. "Today, I felt my knees shift," Mina said, her eyes shining. Rashid froze. "Your knees?" "Yes," Mina whispered. "For so long, they felt like stone. But today, they moved." Rashid's throat tightened. He had been waiting for this moment, yet he had not truly believed it could come. He looked at Amir, who nodded calmly. "Soon, sir," Amir said softly. "Soon she will stand." The words shook Rashid. Could it really be possible? Over the next few days, Amir grew more careful and more focused. He told Mina, "We must not rush. The tree grows strong only if its roots are steady." Mina listened, even when her excitement made her restless. She trusted Amir, and that trust gave her strength. Then, one morning, the miracle arrived. The air was cool, and golden light filled the room. Mina sat in her chair, her hands trembling slightly. Amir stood before her, his young face calm but full of determination. Rashid stood behind the chair, his heart beating like a drum. "Today," Amir said softly, "we will try to stand." Mina gasped. Rashid's eyes widened. "Stand? Are you sure?" "Yes, sir," Amir replied. "She is ready. Even if she only rises for a second, it will open the door for tomorrow." Mina's hands shook as she placed them on the armrests of her chair. Her breath came quickly, her heart racing. She looked at Rashid, her eyes filled with fear and hope all at once. "Rashid," she whispered, "what if I fall?" Rashid knelt beside her, holding her hands. "Then I will catch you. You are not alone." Tears filled her eyes. She nodded, then looked at Amir. "Guide me." Amir stepped closer. He placed his hands gently on her arms. "Slowly, madam. Do not fear. Let your strength rise." The room fell silent. The servants outside paused in their work, sensing something important was happening. Even the ticking of the clock seemed louder. Mina pressed down on the chair's arms. Her body trembled, her legs felt heavy like stone. Rashid held his breath, his hands ready to catch her if she slipped. Amir's calm voice guided her. Breathe. Push slowly. Feel the ground. Trust your body. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, suddenly, her knees bent slightly. Her legs shook, but they did not fail. With a cry, Mina pushed harder. Inch by inch, she rose from the chair. Rashid's eyes widened, his mouth falling open. Mina, you're standing. Tears streamed down her face. She stood, her body trembling, but she stood. After 2 long years of silence and despair, she was on her feet again. Rashid dropped to his knees, covering his face with his hands as tears poured out. Thank you, God, thank you, he whispered again and again. Amir steadied Mina, his young face glowing with pride. You did it, madam, he said gently. It was your strength. I am standing, Mina whispered, almost not believing her own words. After so long, I can feel the ground beneath me. Rashid rose and wrapped his arms around her carefully, afraid she might fall. He held her as if she were the most precious treasure in the world. In that moment, all the weight of his wealth, his power, his pride, melted away. What mattered was not the empire he had built, but the woman who stood in his arms, the boy who had given her hope, and the miracle that had touched their lives. When Mina finally sat back down, exhausted but smiling, Rashid turned to Amir. He placed his hand on the boy's shoulder, his voice breaking. You are not just a boy from the street. You are an answer to our prayers. I can never repay you. Amir lowered his head humbly. I only did what my father taught me. But the true strength came from her heart. That evening, the house was alive with joy. The servants celebrated quietly, unable to hide their smiles. Rashid walked through the halls as if the world had changed, his steps lighter, his heart free. For years, he had carried sorrow like a shadow. Now, light had entered his home. The miracle moment had arrived, and it had changed everything. The day Mina stood on her feet became the day everything changed inside Rashid's mansion. It was not only a miracle for her but also a rebirth for Rashid, who had lived with silent grief for years. The heavy silence that once haunted the house was now filled with whispers of hope. Every morning, Rashid found himself waking up earlier than before, eager to see Mina take another step. Amir guided her patiently, sometimes spending hours helping her balance, stretch, and move. Mina's progress was slow, but it was steady. With each day, she could walk a little more, first from the chair to the bed, then across the room, and later, out into the garden where she had not walked for 2 long years. One bright morning, Mina stood on the soft grass of the garden, leaning lightly on Amir's arm. The wind touched her face, and she smiled as if tasting freedom for the first time. Rashid watched her from a short distance, his heart swelling with emotions too deep to put into words. You brought back my life, Mina said softly, looking at Amir. Amir shook his head humbly. It was already inside you, madam. I only helped it wake up. Rashid stepped forward, placing his hand gently on Amir's shoulder. His voice trembled. No, Amir. What you gave us is beyond words. You gave me back my wife. You gave me back hope. The boy lowered his eyes, unused to such honor. For so long, he had lived on the streets, invisible to most people. Now, here he was, standing beside a powerful man and his wife, treated like family. That night, Rashid could not sleep. He sat in his study, staring at the flickering lamp. His thoughts kept returning to Amir. The boy was gifted, but also alone. Rashid remembered Amir's ragged clothes the day he first saw him, his hunger hidden behind polite words, and his eyes carrying wisdom far beyond his age. Why should he live on the street when he saved the heart of my home? Rashid thought. The next morning, Rashid made his decision. He called Amir to the sitting room, where Mina was already waiting, dressed in soft colors, her smile brighter than ever. Rashid stood tall but his eyes were gentle. Amir, Rashid began, you came into our lives as a stranger, but you healed our wounds with the care of a son. I cannot let you return to the cold streets. From today, this is your home. You will stay with us, study, and grow. I will be your guardian, if you allow me. Amir's eyes widened, his lips parting in shock. Sir. His voice broke. For a moment, he could not find words. You mean? I can stay here? Truly. Yes, Mina said warmly, reaching out her hand toward him. You gave me my steps back. Let us give you a future. Amir's eyes filled with tears he had been holding back for years. Slowly, he nodded. I will never forget this kindness. I will honor it all my life. From that day, Amir was no longer the homeless boy on the street. He became part of Rashid and Mina's family. The servants respected him, the house welcomed him, and Rashid treated him like his own blood. Days turned into weeks, and Mina's steps grew stronger. Soon, she no longer needed Amir's arm for every walk. She could move across the garden, sometimes even laughing as she challenged herself to walk faster. Rashid often stood at her side, steadying her when she wobbled, but always smiling with pride. One afternoon, Rashid gathered his closest friends and business partners at his home. Many of them had heard whispers of Mina's condition but had never seen her in public since her accident. When Mina entered the hall, walking slowly but firmly, the entire room gasped. Mina, one of the women cried. You are walking again. Yes, Mina said with a gentle smile. Thanks to faith, patience, and the boy who never gave up on me. All eyes turned to Amir, who stood quietly in the corner. Rashid proudly placed his hand on the boy's shoulder. This young man taught me something that wealth and power could not. He taught me that miracles are born from kindness and faith. That night, after the guests left, Rashid sat with Mina and Amir under the stars in the garden. The air was cool, the sound of crickets filled the silence. Rashid looked at the two people beside him, his wife, whose smile had returned, and the boy who had become his son in all but name. My life was full of riches, Rashid said softly, but I was poor in heart. Today, I feel truly wealthy. Mina reached for his hand, her eyes shining. Because now, we have love, hope, and family. Amir looked at them both, his voice trembling but filled with peace. And I have a home. That is the greatest gift of all. The stars above seemed brighter that night. The once broken house was now alive with laughter, steps, and dreams. Rashid, Mina, and Amir, three lives that fate had tied together, sat side by side, knowing that tomorrow would no longer be dark. It was not just the story of a miracle. It was the story of finding family where one least expected it. And from that day on, the mansion was no longer silent. It was filled with footsteps, hope, and love that would last for a lifetime.